As usual, I left the factory like every day. But this time, I left it forever. Today, I finally left the factory. And it's impossible for me to go back to it. I know I don't work like normal people. Lately, I've been tired in an abnormal way. I don't know if it's because of the drugs I stopped taking or it's just regular thirst. My mental and physical condition wasn't stable. I haven't been able to work or focus on anything for a while, so I couldn't work. The ghosts of the past and nightmares were controlling me in a horrible way. Whether I was awake or asleep, I kept seeing strange imaginations in front of me. All the people around me thought I was crazy, and their behavior with me was strange. They always made me look crazy, and that was the main reason why I refused to work. Now, I'm walking on the street and I don't know how to get back to my apartment, and I have to rent it for 4 months. I didn't work a lot this month, and the company's manager kicked me out without giving me a penny. And for that reason, I'm sure that if I go back to my apartment, the owner of the building will kick me out like a dog in the street. And because of that, I found my leg taking me to my old house. The ghost of the past that has been chasing me for 15 years. And because of that, I'm living in a nightmare and walking on the streets. I know that this is the stupidest decision I've ever made in my life. But unfortunately, there is no other solution in front of me. Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. I'm Olivert James, and this is The Narrator. A new episode inspired by a real crime that really happened, and from the book of Olivert James. Why did someone decide to go back to the ghost of the past that has been chasing him for 15 years? What if he was forced? And let's see where the force can take people to. Today's story is an important story, and it needs focus. So let's continue and find out what is the ghost of the past. Let's go. Finally, after a long journey, I arrived. I stood in front of him, and I looked at every inch of him, and I was hoping. And suddenly, without any introduction, I heard a voice coming from behind me. What brought you here again? Mahmoud? I stood in my place, and I didn't know what to do. I looked around, and I found the same voice repeating the same question again. I'm telling you, what brought you here? Mahmoud? I turned around to look at it. The same sharp features. The same blackness that is visible in her eyes. Despite the past years, she is still as strong as she was 15 years ago. I looked at her nervously, and I shook my hand for the second time. How are you, Sana? Still the same. You haven't changed in 15 years. You are the one who has changed, Mahmoud. She said that, and then I looked at her eyes and continued. You didn't tell me. What brought you here? I smiled at her, and I looked at her for a second. And then I found myself telling her, time flies. I turned around a lot. And when I found myself tired of turning around and about to give up, I decided to go back. And then, the bird's path returns to its life again. Yes, but this bird, in order to live, it must be a wild bird. Because if it talks, its fate will be slaughter. I smiled at her, and I told her, jokingly, God bless you, Sana. I left her and turned to the door. I picked up the chain I had been wearing for 15 years and took out the key from it. The key that I had been hanging on the chain for all these years. And that's because I knew that one day I would come back again. I opened the door and went in. I continued to contemplate every branch around me. And Sana still stood behind me and didn't move. And with her standing, she spoke to me and told me, if you had come to reveal the legend that we have been fighting for 15 years, you would have opened hell's gates on yourself and me. And believe me, we won't be able to close them again. I turned to her and told her, good night, Sana. Good night. I closed the door and closed my eyes tightly. And I was trying to forget everything I had been through in this place. Every inch of it smelled like blood. Do you know the smell of old, decayed houses? In addition to the smell of blood that was mixed with these smells. This is the smell of the house. Anyway, I opened my eyes and looked around me again. And despite the fact that everything in this house moved inside me, a feeling of longing, which had been thinking about me for the worst days of my life. The day that I try to forget as much as I can. Everything in the house was as it was. Nothing moved from its place. The dirt was covering everything. The cobwebs were occupying the whole house. I took a deep breath and walked towards my room, which I had been living in for years. I stood in front of the room and put my hand on the door handle, but I couldn't open it. I stood in front of it, afraid and hesitant. I looked at the floor. I didn't know why I moved away from it, and I found my legs and arms towards my father's and mother's room, the room in which I lived the worst moments of my life. And because of it, I ran away from here 15 years ago. I looked at the floor. I imagined that I would find traces of blood, as I left them a long time ago. But in fact, I didn't find anything. It seemed that the cobwebs had cleaned it well after I left. So I left my body on the bed. I couldn't move a single step because of the stress and exhaustion. I thought that I wouldn't be able to sleep because of what happened. But as soon as I left my body on the bed, I had a deep sleep. I even thought that I had a terrible dream. A sheet of my life in front of me every time. Moments of shriek and fear. Moments of terror and regret. Shame and humiliation. I woke up after that and I was terrified. My whole body was like a snowplough. And strangely, I was very thirsty. I don't know if this is because of the fear, or because of the terror of the place and the strange energy in it. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I got up from the bed, went to the balcony, lit a cigarette and kept smelling the air. The place around me was completely quiet, and this was the main factor in me being very happy. But this time, my happiness was cut by the sound of the sheep. It was howling in a terrifying way. I threw the cigarette out of my hand and went inside. I closed the balcony door, and as soon as I entered the living room, I began to see a flock of sheep in front of me. I felt a black shadow running in front of my eyes. I stood still and couldn't move. I was afraid. For the first time in 15 years, I was afraid like this. And with my fear, I heard a faint noise. And at the same time, I heard someone calling out to me. I didn't know if what was happening was real or just an illusion. I closed my eyes and put my hand on my chest, and the voices began to rise. And suddenly, I felt that these ideas were getting closer to me. I felt that they were surrounding me from all directions. And with them, the voices of the sheep outside began to rise more and more. My whole body became hot. There was a new heat surrounding me. I didn't know what the source of this heat was, but I sat on my knees and closed my neck towards my chest. And I still had my eyes closed and I was afraid to open them. I wasn't ready to see anything at the moment. I felt that something was touching my shoulder. Suddenly, I began to scream. I was screaming in hysteria. And at the moment, the morning call began to ring. And with the sound of the call, everything disappeared with it. I didn't hear anything. I opened my eyes and looked around me, and I didn't find anything. I got up from my seat and I was terrified. I kept repeating the call, and inside of me was an indescribable amount of fear. I went to the bathroom and went to pray, and after a while, the fear subsided. I waited for a while and I was turning right and left around me, and I was sure that what I saw was just my imagination. And after a while, I kept looking for the prayer mat until I found it. I put it down and started praying. And from there, all the fear inside of me was removed from my heart. I finished the prayer, and I felt that the whole world was calm around me. And with calmness, I ran to my room, closed the door and slept on my bed. I slept, and I didn't feel anything this time except for the morning. I woke up around 10 a.m. I felt that my whole body was broken. I got up and opened all the windows of my house. And I won't deny that I wasn't afraid. On the contrary, I couldn't forget what I saw. And in every step I took in this house, my heart was getting out of its place. But what reassured me a little was that during the day, the street was full of movement. But I was convinced that the houses that are closed for a long time are inhabited by the landlord. And this house was not only closed for 15 years. No, there was also a murder crime. I wanted to change everything in the house. I wanted to renew the oxygen from the place. And I wanted to clean it. I had to move all the furniture from its place. God willing, I will clean it and put it back in its place. The important thing is to move. And this is so that if there is something in the house, you can get rid of it. I turned on the cowbell, turned up the volume, and started cleaning the house. I looked around the house and found some old cleaners. I know that their abilities are over and they will not help me in cleaning. But I had to clean them because I didn't have money to buy anything with. All I had in my pocket was 15 pounds. And these guys feed me today before I see how I will behave or how I will live after that. I was very focused on the work of the house. But my concentration evaporated as soon as I saw it from the window. The first time I saw it, I felt very strange feelings inside. Fear, anxiety, tension, and joy. There were a lot of feelings inside and I couldn't understand them. All I could do at the time was to just look at its beauty. I didn't know I could see it again after all this life. I looked at its neck and saw the chain it was wearing. I found myself smiling with love. This is the same chain that I kept looking for a year and a half until I was able to buy it for her. It was a chain with her name on it. Layla, the most beautiful girl my eyes could see. She was very beautiful. I remember very well that all the boys in the neighborhood used to look at her and run after her. As I can assure you now, they all still love her and keep chasing her like they used to do a long time ago. But what reassures me a little is that she is still wearing my chain. The chain that I am sure she never took off from her neck or even thought of taking off. I focused on her green eyes and my lips were still speaking her name. But I was still anxious and I called out to her. Layla, you are my daughter, Layla. Change your clothes and come help me with the breakfast. Hurry up. I have a lot of work to do. I looked at her and she answered me. I'm coming, uncle. She hit the ground with her feet and she was swallowing like a baby. She was still innocent as she was. She hasn't changed yet. She looked at me and her eyes were saying a lot of things, as if she was asking me to leave. But I smiled at her and walked away from the window. After I walked away, I sat on the chair next to me. I put my head back and remembered all my memories with her. Layla is the love of my life. No matter how far I go, I will never forget her. Layla will always be in my heart. After a long time of thinking and remembering with her, I finally got up and continued what I was doing before I saw her. I stayed close to all the young people. Maybe I want to see her again, or at least hear her voice. Indeed, I heard her in the kitchen standing with Sana and saying to her, Sana, is there anyone living in the apartment we rented? Sana remained silent until I answered her and asked her, Whose apartment, my love? Uncle Saleh's apartment. Mahmoud's apartment. As soon as Layla said that, I heard something falling on the floor. Layla screamed in fear. Sana continued what she was saying and said to her, You don't have a right to anything, Layla. Just be yourself. You have nothing to do with the apartment we rented. Mahmoud completely forgot about it. Forget it, my love, and focus on your study. Just focus on your studies. Get rid of your college and get a job. I advise you to stop looking at the young people. Stop looking at the young people and stop being curious. As soon as she said that, my heart ached. I felt so small in front of Layla. It was easy for me to hold Sana and hug her with my hands. But no, I got so angry that I couldn't continue what I was doing. Finally, after a long time, I was able to get rid of a large part of the apartment. At that time, I was very hungry and wanted to eat. So I opened my closet and looked in my old clothes. Maybe I can find something that fits me. Something that I can bring for breakfast instead of the clothes that were wasted in cleaning. After looking for about half an hour, I was able to find clothes that fit me. They were a little short, but they were better than nothing. I changed my clothes and went down to get some clothes that would be enough for the day. I took them and went back home. I was about to open the door. I found the door to my closet opening. Sana came out of it and said to me, When I saw you coming down, I said, Of course I will come down and never come back. But now I found you back. In general, don't exhaust yourself. Today you will spend the day with us. No matter what happened, what will remain between us is bread and salt. She looked at me with surprise and continued her words. There are a lot of things between us. A lot. Isn't that right? I looked at her from top to bottom, and I literally couldn't stand her. I want her from me. Sana, what did you hear, Mahmoud? Come because I put the breakfast in advance and I'm waiting for you. No, thank God I brought breakfast. And then I have a lot of things to do in the apartment and I have to finish them. No, come and eat. Layla and I will finish everything for you in the apartment after breakfast. Even Amar knew that you came and he wanted to come to you from dawn and say hello to you, and I prevented him. I told him to come to you after he wakes up, and he is still sleeping now. Even Layla also asked about you. What? Don't you want to sit and have breakfast with her and Amar like before? I swear she was pressing me. She assured me that as long as she brought the story of Layla, I would never refuse her request. And that's exactly what happened. I put the food I brought in the apartment on the floor. I closed the door and went to her. And as soon as I entered, I kept looking with my eyes at Layla. I didn't see her, but Sana was very focused with me at that time. Don't think about that, Mahmoud. It's good for you. If you had decided that you would live here again, at that time you should forget everything in your mind. I don't have anything in my mind, and you know that. Sana, can you get me out of your mind for a while? Okay, brother. I just told you to think if you had forgotten anything. Don't worry, I never forgot. She was still answering, and the silence as soon as she saw Layla entered us. Layla came closer to us and extended her hand while she greeted me. How are you, Mahmoud? Aren't you Mahmoud too? I smiled and extended my hand to greet her. Yes, I'm Mahmoud. God bless you, Layla. How are you? Thank God, I'm fine. I think Mahmoud is a guest here and we have to treat him. And then he came from a trip and he's tired. I mean, we have to make him more tired. Isn't that right, Mrs. Layla? Yes, uncle. Yes, I'm here. Come in, Mahmoud. This is Sana's uncle. We made you breakfast. You deserve it. Yes, I noticed the smell. But where is Amar? Layla answered me while she was moving in front of me to sit. Amar, I woke up and he takes a quick shower to get better. And he will come right away. I tried to smile and reduce the tension I was feeling. I was really embarrassed and I couldn't move or even say anything. The amount of tension is indescribable. And I really don't know if this is Sana's words or Layla's presence next to me. Until now, I still can't understand that I saw her again after all these years. But in the middle of my tears, Amar welcomed my thoughts because of his high voice. Mahmoud Saleh is here. After all these years, Mahmoud, I finally got to see you. You are from my place and I greeted him. He looks completely different from the last time I saw him. He looks like a completely different person. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that we kept talking and having fun and we all had breakfast together. And when we finished, Amar took me and we entered the balcony. And the one who didn't try the balconies on the ground floor, he was very tired. It was fun. It was fun to sit and talk and chat for a long time while we were drinking tea. And of course, at that time, Amar was trying to know everything about me. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to answer him. His questions were too many and I wasn't able to answer them. Don't you want to talk? Mahmoud? What do you want us to talk about, Amar? I don't understand your brain and I don't know what you want to reach. I want to know everything, brother. The reason for your absence all this time. You have been missing since Salah left. This man, no one knew your way. Is it possible that you left without telling anyone? But you know, since Salah left, everything has changed. Her mother told me that her father left as well, which means that he left us and disappeared. And this is because of his constant disputes with my mother. And then my mother died of sadness. And at that time, I felt that I was left alone. I didn't know what to do. Her father left us and disappeared. And my mother died of sadness. And suddenly, I found myself responsible for my little sister. But God bless her. God bless my Aunt Sana. If she didn't come and stay with us, we would have been lost. God bless her. She stayed with us and raised us and raised us. And she didn't leave us for a single moment. Except that she used to work and spend money on us. And when I told her that I will leave education and go to work and make her happy, she refused and told me that I have to continue my education. And that I am entrusted in her care, my sister. And if my mother was here, she wouldn't have allowed me to leave education and go to work at all. I smiled at his words and I replied, God bless her. God bless your Aunt Sana. She has always been honest and a good friend. I know her very well. Almost no one in this world knows her better than me. I don't know why I feel that you are hesitating. No, not at all. I am serious. Your aunt is one of a kind. God bless her. I kept talking to Amar for a long time. And with our talk, I forgot myself with her. I haven't talked to anyone like this for years. And because of that, I didn't feel like myself except when the world got dark. And then I realized that I had to go back to my apartment early to continue what I was doing in the morning. But I was surprised at night when she came to us. She and Sana. And then she talked to Sana and told us, "Come on, get up, you two. Lunch is ready." I felt embarrassed and told her, "No, sorry, I can't. I have to go back to my apartment because you won't leave here. Your house is a mess and you won't be able to clean it by yourself. I will go clean it in the morning and at night, God willing. And today you will sleep with Amar in his room." "Yes, but..." "No buts. I have already decided and you have to do it. I am not like your Uncle Mahmoud." I was very surprised by the way she spoke. How did she turn 180 degrees like that? If anyone didn't know her, they would say she is nice and kind. But since I memorized her more than herself, I know that her intentions are not good, and that her words are behind something that I don't know. But since I don't know her, I tried to avoid talking to her because, to be honest, I had a bad mood because of what I did with Amar. At the same time, I didn't have to make Amar and Layla feel anything between me and Sana. And that's because I know that if I talk, I won't be able to control my tongue and he might leave me. And indeed, I went out with him and we had lunch. Then we prayed and watched TV for a while. And as much as I could, I tried to avoid Layla's eyes. And until I was sure that if I looked at her, I would be happy with her and I wouldn't be able to control myself. I was focusing on the TV that I hadn't watched for a long time. And when the time passed very quickly and I didn't feel it, I was about to die and I closed my eyes. So I asked Amar to let me in his room to sleep. And indeed, Amar brought me his clothes and I went in to take a shower quickly and I changed my clothes and I slept. And this time I slept without anything happening to me. All that happened to me was that I had a terrible dream. I dreamed of the past in all its details. I dreamed that I was standing in front of our house and in my hand was a line of blood. I was standing in front of the bedroom and I was breathing heavily. And suddenly, I woke up in a state of shock. Amar woke up to my voice and asked me if there was anything, but I told him that I was fine. I just saw a nightmare and that there was no need to worry. And when he reassured me, he left me and went to sleep. But I stayed awake. I was afraid to sleep. I knew that as long as I came here, the past would keep chasing me until I died. And with my anxiety and my unwillingness to sleep, I left the room and I wanted to go out to the balcony to get some fresh air. I left comfortably so that Amar wouldn't wake up and I entered the balcony. And I discovered that Layla was sitting in it. At first, I wasn't aware of her, but when she started moving, I felt her. And with my feelings, I looked at her and asked her, "What are you doing in the balcony at this time?" She wasn't coming to sleep and I just wanted to go out to get some fresh air. "And you?" I looked at the street and she was nodding deeply. "I wasn't coming to sleep and I just wanted to go out to get some fresh air." She was looking at me and she was smiling. I couldn't resist her innocence and beauty. I looked into her eyes and with my eyes wide open, I started talking to her. I was confused and I forgot myself. I only heard Sana's voice and she was calling out to me. I looked at her and she approached me and saw me standing and talking to Layla. And as soon as I saw her with me, I said to her, "What are you doing here? And what got you out of your room? I wasn't coming to sleep and I don't want to talk too much. Go to your room right now." And she really went into her room. As usual, she stopped and said 2 words to me. I said to her, "Mahmoud." I said to her, "Sana. Ever since I came here, I've been suffocated and tired. I know how to sleep and I know how to get rid of the dreams and fantasies that I see. But every now and then, you keep threatening me. You know very well that if I'm wrong and a criminal, you're also a partner in the crime. I mean, if you want to distort my image in front of your sister's children, I'll distort your image in front of them and tell them what you did to their mother. And as for my conversation with Layla, which naturally poses a danger to you and you want to prevent it, I'd like to tell you that you're wrong. If you prevent me from talking to her, you won't be able to stop me from loving her. You won't even be able to stop her. Layla, since the day I opened my eyes to the world, she's the only one who knows me and her brother. I don't know anyone else and I'll never look at anyone else. And then what? I was the first one to take Layla away when she was born. I took her away before even her mother took her away or saw her, without me choosing her name. So if you're planning to prevent me from loving her, I'd like to tell you that this is one of the 4 impossibilities. And then I didn't mean to talk to her. I know she's educated and I'm not. She's a world-class engineer and I have a degree. And don't worry, I can control my emotions well. Then I was planning to sleep in my apartment. And you're the one who planned for me to sleep with you here. So if you'll excuse me, you won't keep telling me that I'm warning you and not warning you. Find a sign, Sana. Find a sign because you know very well what I can do. Excuse me. I left her and went to sleep again. I stayed for a long time until I went to sleep. And this time I also dreamed of the same nightmare. But this time the nightmare was longer and uglier than the one before. I was standing in the middle of the hall holding the same line that was in my blood. My mother was floating in front of me in her blood. And my Uncle Saber was with her. Abu Layla and Amar. And Najwa was sitting in front of me. Layla and Amar and my wife Saber. She was sitting in her bed and crying. And with her collapse, she ran to me and grabbed my t-shirt and she was trying to suffocate me. Oh, black river of hell. What should I do now or how should I escape? It's forbidden. She was screaming in my face and I was frozen in my place and I couldn't move. I didn't know what to do. I was scared and terrified. I don't know. I don't know what will be my destiny. And in the middle of the dream, I woke up and I was terrified. For the second time I woke up and I was terrified because of the nightmare on the same night. But no, I knew and I was sure that as long as I came here, I will not be able to escape from the past. This will keep chasing me for the rest of my life. I took a deep breath and looked at my watch. It was 6 o'clock in the morning and the day was over. And that's why I decided to go back to my apartment. I cleaned it and then I took a shower. And after I was fine and calm, I kept walking around the apartment and looking for anything. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I was scared and nervous. I was sure that this apartment had spirits attached to it. And I knew that these spirits would not leave me alone until it was over. I was scared and terrified. But unfortunately, I had no choice. I had nowhere else to go. And if I went back to my apartment, my friend would kick me out of it. And that's because I haven't paid the rent for several months. And besides that, I'm tired of my job. I mean, I don't have a source of income to rent another apartment outside. Wait a minute. How did I not think of this idea? I can't leave this apartment because I don't have a stable income. So the solution is to go down and look for a job and work. I'm ready to go down and work all day. I'm ready to kill myself to the point where I can't sleep at night because I'm so tired. And I don't feel any of the things that happen here. And it's only been a month or 2 since I left this place. And indeed, I stayed awake until the movement stopped in the streets and all the shops were almost open. And with the sounds coming from the street, I looked around me with concentration and then I went down and kept looking for a job. And thank God, after walking around for about 3 hours, I was able to find a good job in a big supermarket. My job was to pick up the goods and store them in the warehouses. And I agreed with the employee that I would start with it tomorrow. And after I agreed to the job, I went back home and met Amar, who was upset because I woke up early and left. And Layla was even more upset because she thought that Sana bothered me yesterday. Because she saw us standing together, but none of them felt anything inside me. And I couldn't explain to them that the problem wasn't with them. And that the whole problem was with me and only because of me. I was the one who destroyed my life and their lives. And because of me, every time I look at their faces, I feel that the guilt is killing me. I felt like a traitor to them. And of course, I was sure that if they knew the truth, they would hate me. And they would also kill me. I tried to run away from them and told them that I was tired. But Amar was determined that I would go back to the other house. And that I shouldn't sit alone in my apartment. I didn't know how to act and how to make him let me sit alone. And all of this was happening in front of Sana. And she didn't say a single word. And as usual, I entered with them and stayed with them all day. And in the end, I slept in Amar's room that day as well. But before that, I told them that this would be the last day I would stay with them. And that I would simply go to work the next day and come back late. and that my apartment would be clean and I would be able to live in it normally. But he didn't listen. Amar had a strange insistence to stay with them, and because of his insistence, I looked at him and asked him, "Why do you want to stay here and not come back to my apartment again?" "Honestly, Mahmoud, I want you to get closer to Sana and Layla more." "What do you mean? I don't get it. Don't get me wrong. I just noticed that you've been very closed-minded ever since you came here. Except that sometimes I feel that Sana has created a state of terror for you. I always notice that she gives you a lot of whispers, and I'm sure that she's bothering you with silly words and harsh controls. She's my aunt and I'm protecting her. Honestly, Mahmoud, I want you to get along with them normally. And then, between you and me, a miracle came to me from heaven. God sent you to me at the right time." "What do you mean? I don't get it. I have a work contract in Europe, Mahmoud, and I have to travel. Honestly, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and it can't be repeated again. And if I don't travel, my future will be destroyed here in Egypt. That's why I have to travel and work. I have to stand on my feet to be able to support my aunt and uncle at a better level than this. I see that Sana has been very hard on us, me and Layla. That's why I want to get rid of this burden. At the same time, I'm afraid to leave them alone and travel. But if I travel and leave them with you, believe me, I'll be reassured. I don't know if you'll stay here for long or not, and I don't know why you're sad and worried all the time. I tried to understand the reason for your absence, anxiety, and sadness in your eyes, but I didn't know. But honestly, I don't want to pressure you. And at the same time, you're the only person I can travel to while I'm dependent on. Mahmoud, my flight is in a week, and no one knows about it. That's why I'm trying to be nice to you as much as I can. Because Mahmoud helped me with this. I agreed, and I don't know why exactly I agreed, but I saw his place. If I were in his place now, I might be saying the same thing. Amar wants to see his life and future, and honestly, I can't prevent him from achieving his dream, traveling, and working as he wants. I was deprived of that, and I don't want to prevent him from it. And after his words, he became very aggressive. We spent the day together like the day before, but on that day, I started laughing and joking with them. I tried to get out of the situation I was in and forget everything that happened to me and still happens to me. I used to go to work from the morning till the end of the day, and then I used to go out with them for a while and then sleep. The situation continued like this for a week, until finally, Amar's day came. And on that day, Sana and Layla knew and turned the world. But he put them in front of the reality and told them that his flight is in a few hours, and that their words with him will not prevent him from traveling. And that's why they took the matter seriously and let him travel. My parents showed me my apartment again, but I was always in contact with them. I'm not lying and saying that my psychological state was good. Every day, I was on the verge of insanity more than the day before. Illusions and horrible nightmares, to the extent that I could not distinguish reality from imagination. But everything that kept me going was Layla. Layla was the only one who could make me forget everything I saw. And just by looking at her face, I loved her more, and I got more and more attached to her. Even she loved me and got attached to her. And that's why I thought of starting a new life. And I wanted to forget everything that happened and start over. And that was the reason why I asked Layla's hand from Sana. But as soon as Sana found out, she went crazy and screamed in my face. "Are you crazy? Did you forget what you did a long time ago? Do you want to marry Layla? What right do you have to ask me for something like this? What? Did I commit a crime? Yes, you did. Then tell me how you want to marry her when you killed her father and mother. That's because you're not a partner in the crime. And don't forget that you're the one who killed her mother, not me. You're the one who killed your sister. So what? So what? And don't pretend to be innocent. I know that you know very well that your intentions are evil. And I'm telling you, Layla will marry you no matter what. And I know that you're a coward. And if you try to stop me, I'll kill you too." I said that and left her. She was in front of me. My heart sank and I thought of Layla. I started looking for her everywhere, but I couldn't find her. I left the house and went back to my apartment. I took a shower and went to bed. After I slept for a while, I heard the door knocking. I looked at the time and it was almost half an hour before dawn. I got up and opened the door. I was shocked when I saw Layla standing next to me. "Layla, why are you here?" She came in and closed the door behind her and looked at me. "I heard you talking to Sanaa. I heard everything between you two. And now I'm here and I want to know, what did I hear? And was it true or not?" And because I had no other choice but to answer her, I shook my head in response. And with my head shaking, I found her crying and asking me, How did this happen?" "I'll tell you, Layla. I'll tell you. 15 years ago, I was a little kid, a teenager. I used to play football all day on the street. My father was traveling at the time. Yes, I woke up one day and he was traveling. You may have seen him 2 or 3 times in my entire life. But my mother was alone all day, unlike your mother who used to go to work. And the day she offered my mother to go to work with her. But my mother refused and told her that the money my father sent her was enough. And that's why your mother left her and didn't talk about this job again. And unfortunately, from here, a relationship between my mother and your father began to develop. And of course, I was blind and didn't know. And one day, while I was playing a match, I hurt my leg. So I had to go home. And then I discovered the disaster. I found my mother and father in a bad situation. I froze in my place and couldn't act. I went into my room that day and tried to close the door loudly to let them know that I came from outside. And from that day on, I started planning how I would take revenge on them. I stayed a week watching them, until I reassured them that I didn't know anything. And I came back to face them like the first time. And I remember that day very well. That I got a knife from the kitchen and stabbed them. And I killed them both. I was standing on their backs, looking at them, and they were bleeding. But at that moment, your mother and Uncle Sanaa came to me. And that's because the door was open and they heard someone shouting. So they came in to see what was going on. And that's when your mother discovered the truth. And she kept stabbing her in the back. But Sanaa started calming her down. And after a few moments, they took the knife from me and decided to get rid of the bodies and hide the news. And that's because your mother and uncle were afraid of the least. And at the end of the day, they were afraid that if they told the police, they would get involved in the case. And that's why they decided to get rid of the bodies as soon as possible. And they did. They wrapped the bodies in blankets and tied them up very tightly. And the 3 of us went out at dawn and buried them in the basement of the house. And that's when we decided to tell people that my mother went to my father and that Saber didn't leave the house. And that's how everyone knew that there were problems between him and your mother. And that's why everyone believed her. Well, what about my mother? How did my mother die? Mahmoud, your aunt. Your aunt was the reason. Your aunt was greedy for your house. And that's because she wasn't married and didn't have a place to stay. And that's why she was envious of your mother and wanted to take the house from her in any way. And because she was jealous of your mother and her greed, she threatened me. She threatened me that she would tell the government and tell them everything. And she brought me poison and asked me to put it in her glass of juice. And if she died then, she would tell people that she was murdered because her husband left her and ran away. And that's exactly what happened. After your mother died, she threatened me and asked me to stay away from here and never come back. Otherwise, she would have threatened me. And here we are. After 15 years, I came back to her again. But I came back here after everything was closed in my face. When I finished talking, I found her falling down the stairs. She left me and went into their apartment. But the next day, I felt an unnatural noise in their apartment and people were screaming. I ran out to see what had happened. And then I was shocked when people told me that Sanaa had died. They told me that she woke up one morning, found the glass of poison in her hand, and went to take it out. But no. I am sure that she was the one who killed her. I know that she will never stop thinking about taking revenge. Yes, Layla killed Sanaa. And of course, it's my turn too. That's what I expected. But what happened was exactly the opposite. Layla had a nervous breakdown and went into a coma. She said that she always sees Sanaa in front of her and she is determined to kill her. That's why the doctors decided to keep her in a hospital. But that's not the problem. The problem is that I also started to see Sanaa. I always see her around me. She is determined to take revenge on me and kill me too. And not just her. her, my mother, and her father Layla. They all still appear to me in my old apartment. And that's it. I hope you liked the story. Thank you very much for watching this episode. I hope you liked the story. If you liked it, please like and share. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Activate the bell button to receive all new videos. Join the family of the narrator group to see the episodes. Join the family of the narrator group on YouTube to receive the story as soon as it is released. And don't forget your brothers in Palestine, Syria, and Sudan. See you in the next episode. Good night.